I am recording this for the sealed annex of the Halveth Assembly, Session 41 of the current cycle. My name is Veth Arun, Senior Elder of the Outer Accords Conclave, 44 years in this chair. I have presided over 11 forbidden-designation reviews. I have signed 7 extensions of the interdiction corridor. I have read aloud, in this chamber, the names of 4 species that no longer require a seat at this table, because they crossed the line that should not be crossed. I am recording this because what happened in the 41st session must be understood by whoever sits here after I am gone, not to frighten them. They will be frightened regardless. I am recording it so they understand that the line at human space is not enforced by human weapons, or human fleets, or human warnings. It is enforced by human knowledge. The Vethrani hegemony announced their incursion publicly. That alone was unprecedented. Every prior species that tested the line did so quietly. A survey probe here, a listening station there, a fleet dispatch that was classified until the silence became impossible to explain. The Vethrani did none of that. Fleet Admiral Sovereign Kale stood before his own parliament, broadcast on every public channel the hegemony operated, and declared the date, the 15th day of the 3rd month, by their calendar, 4 months away. He called it a demonstration of sovereign will. He called the forbidden designation an artifact of ancient cowardice, maintained by institutions too timid to examine it. He said the conclave had dressed up administrative inertia as sacred law for long enough, and that the hegemony intended to end the embarrassment. I will admit that I paused when I read the full transcript. Not because he was persuasive, because I recognized the voice. I had read that register before in the records vault. The same flat confidence, the same contempt dressed up as pragmatism, the same certainty that previous losses had been produced by incompetence or bad luck, and not by the nature of what lives on the other side of the line. Every species that did not come back had someone who sounded like Admiral Kale standing at a lectern 4 months before the date they chose. The conclave convened within 6 hours of the announcement. The session was classified immediately. 17 elders present, myself included, and the full advisory corps. The question before us was whether to send a formal interdiction notice to the hegemony, and if so, in what terms. We had not yet finished the first round of statements when the transmission arrived. It came from human space. It was addressed to no one. Not to the conclave, not to the hegemony, not to Admiral Kale. It carried no routing code, no origin designation, no diplomatic preamble. It was transmitted on an open frequency used historically for navigational hazard advisories. Any vessel in range could receive it. Our monitoring station at the Vethris corridor logged it within the hour. It contained a single piece of information. A countdown. Days, hours, minutes, seconds, running backward. The terminus of the countdown was the 15th day of the 3rd month of the Vethrani calendar. Nothing else. No text, no statement, no threat, no explanation of what would happen when the countdown reached 0. Human space did not say, "This is what we will do to you." Human space did not say, "We are aware of your fleet." Human space did not say anything at all. It only transmitted a number that ended on the exact day Admiral Kale had named. The session chamber went quiet in a way I had not experienced in 44 years. Not the quiet of disagreement or deliberation, the quiet of people understanding something for the first time that they could not then set aside. I let it sit for a moment. Then I said what I believed needed to be said. I told them, this is not a threat. A threat tells you what will happen. This tells you only that they already know when. The distinction matters more than anything else in this record. Think about what that precision requires. The hegemony's broadcast was 4 months ago, on a channel humans do not monitor by any mechanism we have ever catalogued. The incursion date had not been transmitted to human space. It had not been shared with any diplomatic body. It was a domestic parliamentary declaration, broadcast inside hegemony sovereign space, on hegemony frequencies. For human space to know that date, and to know it precisely enough to build a countdown accurate to the second and transmit it within 6 hours of our own session convening, they would need to know things that should not be knowable. Or they do not need to know at all. Or the countdown is not a response. It is simply already there, already running, and we happen to be looking for it when we needed to find it. I do not know which of those is true. I am not certain the distinction matters. What I know is that a species that can name your day, before you have crossed, before you have fired, before you have done anything except announce an intention, is not a species whose border is maintained by weapons. It is maintained by something we do not have a word for in any language represented at this table. The advisory corps spent 2 hours attempting to find a conventional explanation, signal interception, but the frequency was domestic and shielded. Hegemony intelligence leak, but the countdown was accurate to the second, and no intelligence source has that precision. Coincidence. But the figure in the chamber who suggested coincidence did not finish the sentence. He stopped himself. He sat back down. Elder Farath of the Second Margin Council asked the question that I think was in everyone's mind. She asked whether we were certain the countdown was not already running before Admiral Kale made his announcement, whether it had been transmitting for years or decades and we had simply never looked. We do not have logs going back far enough to answer that question. Our monitoring station at the Vethris corridor has been operational for 31 years. The transmission was not in any log we hold. That means nothing. 31 years is not very long. I moved to close the debate, not because we had answered anything, because there was nothing left to answer that this chamber was capable of answering. I put forward the motion to issue a formal private communication to Admiral Kale. Not a demand, not a threat, not a diplomatic protest, only the countdown. Only a copy of what human space had transmitted, forwarded without comment. I wanted him to receive it from us, rather than through his own channels, so it would be accompanied by the weight of this chamber and 44 years of institutional memory sitting behind it. The motion carried without dissent. 14 votes in favor. 3 abstentions. No one voted against. I do not know what Admiral Kale said when he read it. I know only the result. On the 29th day of the second month, 17 days before his declared date, the hegemony filed a formal withdrawal of the incursion declaration with the Border Compact Authority. The filing cited revised strategic assessments. It was bloodless and quiet and bureaucratic, and I imagine it was an enormous relief to the people who signed it. The fleet never moved. The date came and passed. Nothing crossed the line in either direction. I sat in my office on the 15th day of the third month and worked through a routine agenda. I did not look at the countdown after midnight. I did not need to know whether it had stopped running or whether it simply continued forward, no longer marking anything that had happened, because nothing had happened. I sealed the original transmission in the Annex archive the following morning. It is there now, cataloged under the Session 41 file. If you are reading this record, you are authorized to retrieve it and listen to it in its entirety. It takes less than 1 minute. It is a number running backward. I have thought about it every day since. The Conclave extended the Forbidden Corridor by 6 sectors at the next session. The motion passed without discussion. Nobody proposed revisiting the hegemony's reasoning, or examining whether their withdrawn assessment might have had merit. Nobody suggested we attempt to establish contact with human space to clarify the nature of the transmission. Nobody asked whether we should have asked for clarification before the date arrived. Some questions are not requests for information. They are only evidence that you are not yet afraid enough. 44 years in this chair, 11 designation reviews. I have watched species approach the line with confidence and instruments and risk assessments and budget projections and parliamentary mandates. I have read their doctrines. I have seen their admirals. None of them knew their day in advance. Human space knew Admiral Kale's day before he had done anything except name it. That is the record. That is what I am leaving in this annex for whoever sits here after I am gone. Not a warning. They will have the warnings, filed and cataloged and cross-referenced, and the warnings will not be the thing that stops them. The thing that stops them is a number running backward toward a day they chose themselves. If it is already running for the next species that has not yet announced its intentions, we will not know until they find it. They always find it.